Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I hope everyone's doing fine and feeling very blessed and highly favored today. So, we're still in the book of Matthew. And in Matthew, we are seeing that Jesus is doing a lot of healing and rebuking unclean spirits. And so, there's a particular area that he went to that is the region of the Gadarenes. And we're going to pick that up in chapter 5 of Mark, verse 1. And they came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes. And when he was come out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because that he had been often bound with fetters, shackles, and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces, neither could any man tame him. Verse 5. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. Verse 6. But when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him. Verse 7. And cried with a loud voice and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thy Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not. Verse 8. For he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. Verse 9. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. So let's just stop right there to say that up on this region, there was a man who was afflicted with many, many demons, who recognized Jesus as he approached, and he fell down and worshiped him because he knew that he was worthy. He knew that this man came with authority, and that the power of Jesus, he knew that Jesus had authority. And so, therefore, he was frightened. He's like, What do I have? Or like, you come to torment me? As if he wasn't already being tormented. But this is the demons inside of this man talking versus the man. And so, um, and that he besought him much that he would not send them away out of the country. So he begged him that he not send them out of the country. Now there was there nigh unto the mountains a great herd of swine feeding, and all the devils now begged him. It says he besought him, saying, Send us unto the swine, that we may enter into them. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave. And the unclean spirit went out and entered, the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea. There were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. Verse 14. And they that fed the swine fled and told it to the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. Now, these people knew that man, I don't know, to say, like maybe the man was crazy and nobody messed with him, like they probably say, oh, he's crazy, and he was homeless or whatever, and he lived amongst the tombs and in the mountains and stuff, and he's filled with demons. And so, you know, these people lived in the area, they had to be aware. And so, um, Jesus granted them to be able to get to, well, rebuke them out of that body of that man. And they entered into the swine and ran off the, what is it, ran off the, was it a mountain? Let's see. And forthwith Jesus gave them leave, and the unclean spirit went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. So a steep place. They ran, I don't know, maybe a hill and onto the sea, you know, or the edge of a mountain maybe. And they that fed the swine fled and told it to everyone that was in the city and the countryside. And they went out to see what it was that was done. All the people come to see what had happened to this herd of swine. And they come to Jesus and see him that was possessed with the devil. See, they knew, and had the legion sitting and clothed in his right mind, and they were afraid. So they, knew that someone wasn't right, with rap tight with this man, and he was crazy, and he probably had demons in him. They knew, and so when they come, now they see a whole new person. And in verse 16 it says, and they that saw it told them how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. And they began to pray him to depart out of their coast. And so they began to pray that Jesus would leave, because they did not want him there. Maybe because they just lost a whole herd of pigs, because it said that it was like 2,000. Two, yeah, it says they were about 2,000 and were choked in the sea. And so they lost money. And they didn't care less about that man. He don't bother us, we don't bother him. And so, and they began to pray that to depart out of their coast. So they wanted Jesus to leave. In verse 18, and when he was coming to the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. So the guy, the man, wanted to go with Jesus. And Jesus said in verse 19, howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but saith unto him, go home to thy friends and tell them how great things the Lord have done for thee, and have had compassion upon thee. And so he said, hold on a second. And so the Jesus said, you know, um, Jesus chose his disciples. So for it wasn't in the divine design for this guy to tag along with him. He said, no, go and tell all that you know of me and the great things that I am doing, and that I had compassion upon you, that now you are cleaned. And so, what a wonderful thing for someone to hear, that no, no affliction, no thing that was tormenting that guy. He was cutting himself. And that he has been cleansed of the evilness that was inside of him. And so in verse 20, and he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. In verse 21, and when Jesus was passed over again by ship unto the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. So he was near by the sea. And so verse 21, verse 20, and he departed and began to publish in Decapolis. Okay, I read that. In verse 21, and when Jesus was passed over again by the ship unto the other side, so he went to the other side, much people gathered unto him, and he was nigh unto the sea. So verse 21, and behold, there cometh one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus. So this is one of the rulers of the people that that were of the synagogue, where they would come and bother him, and you know um ask these questions, and just come against him. And so one of the rulers of the synagogue, Jairus by name, and when he saw him, he fell at his feet, and he besought him greatly, saying, he begged him greatly. I don't know if I say triggering words, so I'm going to um, not use this certain word in here. So the guy, Jairus, begged Jesus, telling him about his little girl, his daughter, is really ill at the point of, really, really seriously, I would say gravely ill. And he's praying that if he would just lay his hands on her, that she will be healed and she shall live. And Jesus went with him, and much people followed him and thronged him. A great multitude was following him. Verse 25, and a certain woman, which had an issue of blood 12 years. 12 years is a long time to have an issue with blood. And verse 26 of Mark 5, chapter 5, it says, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. So there is a woman who has had an issue with her blood, maybe some kind of bleeding or bacteria. I'm not really sure, but she had an issue with her blood. And she spent all of her money going to the physicians, who only made things worse. So let's read that again in verse 25. And a certain woman which had an issue of blood 12 years, and had suffered many things of many physicians, and had spent all that she had, and was nothing bettered, but rather grew worse. Verse 27, when she had heard of Jesus, came in the press behind and touched his garment. So I'm going to stop there, because I think of many things, and I'm saying, I'm looking at, like, what if he didn't even go into that region? What if he never had heard of him? This woman would have just been suffering for more years. 12 years she's been suffering, where the physicians don't even know how to heal her. And she has suffered through them, where they made her issue even worse than it was, you know. And so, because came along a healer, a healer, the Son of God, who has this authority upon earth to do these things, to have compassion upon the people and heal them, came along them that, okay, I'm sorry about that. It's noise in the background. So, what if Jesus didn't come by? What if she hadn't heard of him? But he was making his way to everywhere that he needed to go, that people would know that he was here, that a Savior has come, and that they will witness many things, many miracles, for it will be talked about even until now. And so, this lady who was suffering for many years, suffering, heard about him. And through her suffering, she got up and she said, if I can only touch him. So let's see. Verse 27. When she had heard of Jesus, came in and pressed behind and touched his garment. Ah. Verse 28. For she said, if I may touch but his clothes, I shall be whole. If she could just touch his clothes. She believed that if she just touched his clothes, that she would be healed and suffer no more. She believed that. And straightway the fountain of her blood was dried up. So it said the fountain of her blood was dried up, so she probably had a bleeding problem. And she felt in her body that she was healed of the plague, of the affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that the virtue, the power, had gone out of him, turned him about in the press and said, in the crowd, and said, who touched my clothes? And the disciples said unto him, thou seest the multitude thronging thee, and sayest thou, who touched me? And he looked around about to see her that had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing that was done in her, came and fell down before him and told him all the truth. And he said unto her, daughter, thy faith has made thee whole. Go in peace. And behold, the plague. So many things may matter to people upon this earth. But I know myself that this man matters the most. And I pray that those who want to know him will get to know him and know of his great power, know of his great healing, know of his great love, know of his great compassion. Pay attention, world. Time is getting short. Until next time, be blessed.